Ying Zheng was a brilliant engineer, but he was a terrible product manager. He gave the world a powerful backend, but a nightmare of a user experience. He demanded that every soul become a gear in his machine, forgetting that every user carries a heart. I, Liu Che, inherited this near-bankrupt project. I kept the iron kernel of the Qin, but I wrapped it in a beautiful UI called Confucianism. I launched the salt and iron monetization plan and developed the Silk Road, the first global trade API in history. If Ying Zheng created the system, then I am the one who scaled it for the global market. Welcome to Han Dynasty OS version 2.0. This time, we aren't just unifying the land, we are unifying the mind.
Ying Zheng engineered a powerful backend, but his user interface UI was primitive and terrifying. He interacted with his users solely through punishment and fear. The result? The mental load on the user base became unbearable, eventually triggering a total user riot. When I inherited this system, I realized that while the Qin backend was indestructible, it lacked a social engineering layer that could make users run the code willingly. So I recruited Dong Zhongshu, the top full-stack developer of the age. He told me, "Your Majesty, you cannot simply tell people obey or die. You must tell them that obeying you is divine will, morality, and ritual. You must wrap power in a cultural faith." This was the birth of dismissing the 100 schools, revering only Confucianism.
Think of Apple. Their underlying system is actually highly closed and authoritative, much like the Qin code, but they wrap it in think different, privacy protection, and premium aesthetics. Users aren't just buying a phone, they are buying an identity. Confucianism was the premium branding I developed for the unification system. I kept the legalist kernel of Ying Zheng, the Iron Fist, but I overlaid it with a thick, soft layer of Confucian UI. I hard-coded loyalty to the emperor into the filial piety subroutine. When a son is filial to his father at home, he is, without knowing it, training his loyalty to me.
A powerful OS requires massive computing power, military funding to sustain itself. I wanted to crush the Xiongnu. I wanted to open the western regions. Relying solely on agricultural taxes, that's like trying to run a superpower on low-speed dial-up. I needed high-speed monetization. I appointed Sang Hongyang, a genius fintech specialist. He executed the first large-scale public sector monopoly in history, the nationalization of salt and iron. In ancient society, salt and iron were electricity and data. Everyone needed them daily. The demand was perfectly inelastic. Sang Hongyang told me, "Your Majesty, do not beg the farmers for tax. Let us become the platform owner that defines the price of life." We acquired every private salt and iron merchant, turning them into state-owned enterprises. This massive asset acquisition generated a cash flow that gave me the bandwidth to launch military operations across the entire Eurasian continent. I told myself, Ying Zheng only knew how to trade heads for land. I know how to use financial leverage to fuel expansion. I don't just rule your bodies, I control your cash flow. The failure of the Qin dynasty was a case of scaling overload, expanding faster than resources could replenish. The success of Emperor Wu of Han lay in solving two critical bottlenecks. One, moral scalability, reducing the cost of governance through Confucianism. Two, financial scalability, securing R&D and expansion funds by monopolizing core infrastructure. When my borders pushed forward to the Jade Gate, I realized the world was much larger than the single hard drive Ying Zheng had left behind. To the west, there were countless independent local servers, the western regions, and even a distant competitor system known as Da Qin, Rome. I needed data, I needed hardware resources, war horses. More importantly, I needed to export my influence beyond the local network. I dispatched Zhang Qian. The code name for this mission was Chiseling the Hollow, Zhao Kong. In reality, Zhang Qian was laying a physical fiber through desolate deserts and snow-capped mountains. He had to identify which nodes could be integrated into our system and which were hostile viruses. Think of modern cross-border e-commerce. To sell globally, you must first understand the logistics API and the payment protocol. What Zhang Qian brought back wasn't just grapes and Fagana horses. He brought back a system map, detailing the data formats, customs, and resource distribution of the outside world. Zhang Qian's first attempt failed. He was intercepted by the Xiongnu firewall for 10 years. But when he returned for the second time, he successfully established an encrypted connection with the Western states. I told myself, from this moment on, the West is no longer an unknown void. They have become my remote clusters. Through Silk, I exchange my influence for their loyalty and resources. The Silk Road wasn't just a road, it was a global routing protocol. Silk was my currency of information. It was lightweight, high value, and nearly impossible to forge. I used Silk to pay for border maintenance and to bribe distant nodes. On this route, goods functioned like data packets, starting from Chang'an, passing through various routers, courier stations, and finally arriving in Rome. Just as Google defined the search protocol, Qin OS defined the interface for Eurasian trade through the Silk Road. Although I didn't physically occupy Central Asia, the fact that all data exchange, trade, had to pass through my defined nodes meant I was effectively collecting a platform fee from all of humanity. However, this protocol had one massive vulnerability: latency. A command from Chang'an took days to reach Dunhuang and weeks to reach Dayuan. This lag caused the admin credentials at the border to frequently lose sync, leading to asynchronous execution errors where generals acted without imperial orders. I realized that to maintain this global bus, I had to invest even more cash, military spending, to keep the stations running. I stood in the Weiyang Palace looking westward. Ying Zheng built the mainframe. I have built the network. The great Qin OS is no longer a closed sandbox. It is the root hub that connects the world. The greatness of Emperor Wu lay in his understanding that the strongest empire isn't the one that annexes all land, but the one that defines the standard for all transactions. When the kings of the West began wearing Han silk and using Han script, they were already running my client-side code. I expanded too fast, so fast that even my own database couldn't keep up. To sustain the Silk Road API and the continuous DDoS attacks on the Xiongnu, I pushed the system's resources to their absolute limit. The users, the peasantry, weren't just paying taxes, they were providing the military labor and corvée that kept the hardware running. When a system's I/O weight, human exhaustion, becomes too high, response times lag. In my later years, the system began to spawn a massive number of zombie processes, vagrants. Because the tax load was too heavy, millions of users chose to go offline, fleeing their lands, becoming unstable elements in the social fabric. The legalist kernel, originally designed to maintain security, turned into a memory leak. The more brutal the officials became to maintain order, the more resistance they triggered. To suppress that resistance, more resources were required, a vicious cycle of inefficiency. Think of a high-growth startup that has raised massive funding and captured huge market share, but its burn rate exceeds its revenue growth. It is accumulating technical debt. By my final years, the Qin OS was on the verge of financial bankruptcy and total system collapse. Inside the deep halls of the palace, I looked at the urgent reports piling up. I knew my CPU, my will, could no longer suppress these runtime errors. I made a decision that is nearly impossible for any founder. I admitted the code was wrong. In the 4th year of Zheng, I issued the repenting edict of Londai. This wasn't just a letter of apology, it was a critical hotfix note. I publicly announced the suspension of all outward expansion projects, deprecated features, halted all high-cost infrastructure works, and shifted the system's focus from expansion back to maintenance and stability. Business insight, strategic pivot, and self-correction. A great CEO isn't someone who never makes mistakes. It's someone who knows how to execute a pivot before a total failure. If I had insisted on pushing forward, the Han OS would have followed the Qin OS, collapsing in the second generation. But through this patch, I successfully lowered the system's energy consumption. I told my successor, Huo Guang, stop chasing territorial bandwidth, start chasing the throughput, productivity of the people. Let the system rest, and only then can it run for the long term. I told myself, I spent my life proving what I can do. In the end, I used a single edict to prove what I must not do. This restraint is the ultimate secret to keeping an OS stable for 200 years. Emperor Wu's greatest achievement wasn't defeating the Xiongnu, it was pulling the brakes on the train at the very last second. He understood that scale is nothing without stability. The Edict of Luntai was an active system optimization, forcibly downclocking an overheating server cluster into low power mode to prevent a meltdown. In the end, we achieved the perfect corporate architecture. If you ask what the underlying system of Chinese history is, the answer is Confucianism on the outside, legalism on the inside. In technical terms, this is a dual-core architecture. One, the Qin kernel, the backend, responsible for power, efficiency, digitization, central command, and hard execution. This is the heavy-duty engine of the system. Two, the Han UI, the front end, responsible for branding, morality, social consensus, buffer mechanisms, and user experience. This is the interface that interacts with the populace. Think of a successful modern tech giant. On the surface, they preach vision, mission, and changing the world, the Han UI. But internally they run on brutal KPI audits, stack ranking, and data surveillance, the Qin kernel. A company with only a kernel collapses from its own brutality, the fall of Qin. A company with only a UI goes bankrupt due to fragmentation and inefficiency. The superposition of both is the most powerful survival strategy in the history of governance. We aren't just ruling people, we are managing a scalable ecosystem. We expanded the concept of family into state and converted filial piety into loyalty. This logic reuse minimizes the cost of social development. When you open this script in 2026, you will find that the code we wrote back then is still running in the cloud. Unified standards. Once it was weights and measures, now it is 5G protocols and data standards. Infrastructure first, once it was the galloping roads and the Great Wall. Now it is high-speed rail, satellite links, and computing clusters. Centralized data exchange, once it was household registration and prefectures, now it is big data centers and social credit systems. True entrepreneurs don't chase short-term stock prices, they chase the infrastructure that defines the future. Ying Zheng and Liu Che may have vanished physically, but they successfully transformed themselves into a protocol. Ying Zheng, coldly, do not fear standardization. Standardization is the only exit for civilization. Liu Che, elegantly, but remember to wrap that standardization in warmth. Humans do not like being treated as data, even though in essence that is exactly what they are. The great Qin OS and the great Han OS have merged into an eternal version. The system is auto-updating. Are you ready for the next release? Season 3. 2,000 years ago, we wrote the first line of code on this yellow earth. 2,000 years later, this algorithm still runs in your blood and your logic. The Qin Han OS isn't just a historical term. It's the ultimate solution for efficiency, scale, and human nature. We taught this land how to build order from chaos and find balance amidst expansion. But code evolves when power begins to decentralize, when the system faces sharding, and when the next versions, warlord competition and open platforms, are about to go live. Are you ready to update your cognition?
Thank you for watching the Eastern Algorithm S2, the Qin and Han era. If this product manager and system architect lens on history gave you new insights into business and power, 1. Like this video, let the algorithm know you value this high value content. 2. Subscribe to our channel. Ensure you don't miss Season 3, where we tackle 3 Kingdoms sharding and the Great Tang Open Platform. 3. Share this with your fellow entrepreneurs and managers. Help them perform a mindset reboot. Lastly, leave a comment below. Which modern company's OS do you think resembles Qin or Han the most?